Hello, everyone, and a very good morning to all present today, and to our eminent panelists. A very warm welcome. I would like to introduce our eminent panelists today for the topic, the challenges of being a DPO. Today on the panel, we have Mr. Bhimesh Karadi, Anil Chiplonkar, Mr. Anil Chiplonkar, Satish Kumar Divabhashi, and Sameer Mathur. We welcome you, our panelists. And thanks, Mr. Navi, for arranging the whole of the session. Yeah. The session will be anchored by Navi. Would like to start introducing our first panelist for today, which is Anil Chiplonkar, Consultant Director. Anil has 35 years of experience in information systems and has been working in information security space for 20 plus years. Successfully managed and delivered consulting projects for implementing information security management system, business continuity management systems, ISMS, information security management systems, cyber fraud management, information security, governance, and compliance reviews. Data privacy assessment and implementation for several clients he has done. He had performed digital fraud investigations, advisory services related to fraud risk management for various organizations across multiple verticals like BFSI, IT, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, etc. for fraud risk management. He has worked across Asia Pacific, Middle East countries, and he has many certifications to his credit. We welcome you, Anil, today on the panel. Next on panel, we have Mr. Bhimesh Karadi. Bhimesh Karadi has 31 plus years of experience, professional experience, currently working for US-based company as Chief Compliance Officer, Generalist, DPO, Immigration Specialist, and involved in GDPR, ISO 27701 and 27001 implementation. With demonstrated history of working in information technology as Chief Quality Officer, postgraduated MTech from Vishweshwara Technical University, and PGCLF from National Law School, Bangalore. The best part of it is he follows the attitude is learn it all is his attitude. We welcome you, Bhimesh, today for the discussion. Next panelist is our very own Sameer Mathur, who has been very actively participating for all activities of FTPPI. After spending 30 plus years of experience in consulting at intersection of technology and business, Sameer Mathur, founder and CEO of SM Consulting, a New Delhi-based tech and business advisory, understood the relationship between two or more than theoretical. One of the biggest bottleneck was lack of skill, especially around some of the key business practices, that is unlimited potential. That's what he quote. SM Consulting has recently launched Redwood Learning to tap the potential and help today's decision makers transform their business. Redwood Learning realizes that the way organizations make the most important decision is often hindered by independent, unorganized data, ad hoc decision rights, and lack of transparency. They passionately believe that decisions should be made based on data-driven predictions and easy to understand, and strategies to drive them. We welcome you, Sameer, for today's session. Next, we have Mr. Satish Kumar Divabhashi, who has over 28 plus years of experience in IT and information security. Currently, the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer, CISO at Wimbo, Bangalore, a fintech company. Prior to this, he was with IBM India as a compliance lead, information security and risk management. He is certified as CISA, CISM, CRISC, and lead auditor implementer for ISO 27701. We welcome you, Satish Kumar Divabhashi, for today's session. Over to you, Navi sir, for taking over the session.
Thank you. Mr. Bhimesh also has joined us. We all heard the introduction to Bhimesh. So we have the full panel. So just as it happens in a physical conference, some traffic jams could be there, so delaying some of the panel speakers. But anyway, fine. So friends, we are very happy to have the eminent panel of speakers here. All of them are personally well known to me also for quite some time. And I'm sure we are going to have an excellent discussion on this topic of great interest, which is the topic of being a DPO. What does it mean for a professional of being a DPO. See, yesterday we discussed about the general concepts of personal data protection. We introduced the Personal Data Protection Act of India, at least a few important clauses in that. We also tried to compare the Indian Personal Data Protection Act as proposed in the Personal Data Protection Bill with the better known legislation, which is the GDPR. And we also said that there are certain differences between the PDPA as proposed and GDPR, one of which also relates to the DPO. See, the word DPO appears in more or less all the data protection laws, but what are the functionalities of the data protection officer? What are his so-called say protection available to him, whether he can be he or should be an employee or not? There are some differences between different legislations, but one thing is certain, that in the industry, the role of a data protection officer is going to assume more and more importance, because his role is supported by law. See, there are number of functionaries in an organization. Everybody does critical functions. We cannot say that anybody is less than the other. The HR manager is as important as the business manager, as important as the CISO or the CTO, as important as the compliance officer. But what these legislations have done is, they have recognized this data protection officer as a you can say a legally recognized role in a company. Okay, so for example, if we are talking of a CISO, CISO does something which is in the interest of the company, and it is an internally organized, you can say, a position. But as far as DPO is concerned, he is supported by the law. In fact, there are certain laws which we will discuss with our panel members, which may say that a data protection officer has to report to the highest authority in the organization, one. Secondly, in case there are any differences of opinion, the CEO cannot fire the DPO as easily as he can do anybody else. Okay, there is a sort of unwritten protection because the data protection authorities, whoever is the regulatory authority, in the GDPR we call them as supervisory authorities, may recognize that as something not acceptable. Like, you know, in statutory auditors, if you fire a statutory auditor in a company, that can backfire on the company. Shareholders may question, why are you removing the statutory auditors? Same way, the position of DPO could have a larger than importance in a normal hierarchy of the corporate sector. Many people have been asking me, we already have a CISO, whether the CISO can be designated as a DPO. This is the first point which most of the companies will have to worry about. So that is a issue. Now, will a CISO be, first of all, be the right person to be a DPO? Second is, will the law have any thoughts on whether CISO should be the DPO or he should be an independent authority? So these are some of the questions which will arise. But one thing is certain, the position of DPO is going to be as important, if not more, as that of a CISO. And therefore, people who are currently holding the positions of the CISO or CTO must be prepared to either transform themselves into the position of DPO, if that is going to be the higher end job, or at least learn to live with another executive coming in and sitting along with him and perhaps attending board meetings as an observer. Okay, this is likely to create some disturbance in the hierarchical status of executives in an organization, leading to HR related problems. CEOs need to sort it out. So these are the things which we should recognize, and maybe in the next 1.5 hours, which we will be having, we will try to get as much of information as possible from these experts. Okay, so let us start with our initial discussion with Mr. Anil. Now, if you look at the word data protection officer, what are the functionalities which comes to your mind?
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, based on wherever you are joining. And thanks Navi sir and thanks FDPPI for giving me opportunity to be here. To start with, the first thing is the disclaimer. So whatever I'm going to speak is based purely on my experience and my knowledge about the law, the data protection laws, and my organization where currently I am working as a full-time project person does not necessarily endorse any of my views. These are purely my personal views. So when we talk about data protection officer, and as Navi sir rightly pointed out, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to protecting a data, because CISOs traditionally are given the responsibility of protecting the data, and where we typically start with the confidentiality, integrity, and availability part. So privacy, when it starts more and more prominent kind of a feature, the CISOs are then tasked to actually protect the privacy also, rather than giving them a direct role of a DPO. But when you look at DPO, if I remember it correctly, GDPR section clause 97 talks about DPO kind of skill sets or competencies, which clearly says that the DPO should be a kind of a expert in privacy laws and practices around it. Now, as a CISO, I also had worked as a CISO for a few organizations. I am not really expert per se in privacy law practices. Okay, I may be aware of the law because of my own job requirements or because of my own interest. I might have gone through the law, but I can't be termed as an expert in privacy practices. So that's one of the challenge when you look at CISO and DPO kind of a role. So a data protection officer typically has to work for an organization, at the same time for the regulators also. If you look at number of these privacy laws, they are normally oriented towards the data principle or data subject. So DPO has to ensure that the data subject's rights are protected. Whatever the regulators are laying down the regulations, they are being adhered to. And the DPO is going to be a kind of person who will interact with the organization as well as the regulatory authorities. So he's a kind of middleman between these two. And to ensure that the compliance requirements are properly met within the organization. So that role also DPO has to look at. So DPO has to coordinate with businesses, the technology guys, and all others to ensure that the compliance requirement as required by the regulations are being met. So that is what I think overall DPO role should be.
Thank you.
Back to you, sir.
Yeah. Now we'll go to Satish. Satish has been a long time CISO, and of course he is well known as the past president of ISACA in Bangalore. But I think with the advent of the role of DPO, he will be one of the persons who will be trying to shift to the role of a DPO. So this difference between the CISO's role and the DPO's role, Satish, what are your views?
So yeah, morning all of you, and thanks Navi sir for having me here. So as you said rightly, yeah, so the role is evolving, I should say, absolutely, in the sense, just to go back, CISO role, I think already there's a lot of things on the CISO plate, honestly, again, depending on the type of organization and the context, while very large enterprises can definitely afford to have a separate privacy officer or a DPO, but many organizations, like currently where I work, it's a fintech company, and you understand small or when the organization scale. So I think the focus is more of innovation, and that's how I think the CISO role itself got evolved in the past few years. And I believe that traditionally people look CISO as what do you call, as a person who puts a wheel spanner in the wheel, whereas I believe that the CISO is more of an enabler now. Definitely with privacy laws, legislations coming in, I'm sure the CISO also has to transform himself. Now it's always difficult to say whether to have a dedicated DPO or a CISO can play a DPO role. That's a large debate by itself. But I believe that yes, the CISO need to also understand the nuances of privacy, because absolutely privacy is not a different thing that the CISO can ignore. Or so when I believe that a CISO is working very closely with the board or with the other stakeholders to ensure that the broader organization objectives are met. Now, definitely privacy also is one of the key aspect for the CISO to ensure that that also gets embedded in whatever process. So I think it's a tough call, I should say. Like, at least I myself personally, of course, I keep track of all this what's happening, and I'm definitely part of the DPPI. And I know Navi sir for many years, and we started very early with IT Act. I'm sure means it's not that. So while there is a privacy bill and act coming in, but we have been a very early, in fact, company who adopted, or rather because our stakeholders are too many banks, and we are a service provider. So so honestly, we do not have much luxury. It's more about the banks driving us, and banks are driven by the central banks and regulatory bodies. So we are more at the receiving end. We just have to deliver what the banks expects us to deliver, and definitely privacy is one of the key aspect, especially global banks who we work with. They definitely expect us to comply with respective law of the land and the law of the law. So yeah, I think it's a complementing thing. It's no more a CISO or a DPO. I think we all are business enablers. End of the day, until we don't work and enable the business to achieve the intended objectives, I believe as you move up the ladder, it's more about enabling business. And I'm sure data protection, as Navi sir says, it's not just privacy, it's about data protection. And CISO and DPO, whether it is the same person or two different people, they have to work very closely. Now, it's like traditionally the debate has been, will a CISO report to CIO? No, always there has been a long debate. Now, especially in my ISACA context, I keep talking about having independence, where the CISO should have independence to drive his own charter, because otherwise the CIO charter is different, whether the CISO charter is different. But having said that, not all companies have a luxury of having a dedicated CISO. It's still many companies, I know at least manufacturing companies and all, the CIO himself plays the CISO role. Now, there is a conflict of interest, but having said that, again, it's all about the rhythm, all about the, I should say, working together and finally to achieve the broader objective. And of course, in my company, I report to the CEO and the board, but may not be all companies have the luxury. The CISO reports to the board or CEO, but I think same thing will go. Now, let's don't debate whether who's big or who's small. The DPO may be a bigger a person if an organization is working too much on data, and privacy becomes one of the important driver. I think end of the day, I think we all have to work together. I believe we are all business enablers. That's my submission.
Thank you. We'll go to Bhimesh now. Of course, Bhimesh comes with wide experience, both as the head of the organization and involving himself as the data protection role. So let us have his perspective on how he has seen in the industry the evolving of the role of DPO, because since, let us say, at least GDPR came in. Before GDPR, perhaps that much of importance was not there, but now after GDPR has come, there has been an importance, and now PDPA will also increase that importance in the Indian context. How this evolution has taken place in whatever industry he has been working with. Bhimesh?
Sure, sir. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was kind of distracted. Actually, when you ask this, she said
Bhimesh?
can you hear me?
In your equipment?
There is an there is an echo somewhere.
Now, if you are having two devices logged in, perhaps it may have.
I think the microphone has got issue. I think there's some.
No. It is not working. Why don't you take off the microphone and talk? No. There is some problem with the microphone only.
Now, probably, Bhimish, you can try to log in through your mobile by the time I'll talk to Samir. Okay. So let us have the views of Samir by the time Bhimish can log in. Okay. Yeah, Samir, now so Samir represents sort of a head of an SME kind of a organization. Now he has to think of appointing a DPO himself. So let us have his views on this role of DPO, Samir.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you everyone. Thank you IDPS, FDPI. So I also come from purely an IT background until about a year back, not until I met Navi sir through common friends. I was also not aware of what data privacy is all about, which Mr. Satish also mentioned and Anil also touched on. So for us, privacy, protection, everything was one topic, and everything was merged into one. But after having joined FDPI, became a member and undergone the course on the Indian PDPA, I am much clearer on this, and now I think I am very glad that Navi sir thought that I could be on the panel to discuss DPO, although my experience of data privacy is just about a year or so. But having said that, yes, I understand. I feel that as per the proposed law, the distinction between a DPO and the CISO CIO, which is I'm taking over from where Mr. Satish left, is very clear. Actually, it talks of clash of interest, and it talks of reporting to the board, and it talks of I'm talking of a larger organization. Of course, smaller organization, like you mentioned, I mean there is a lot of merging of jobs. But from the definition point of view and from the concept point of view, since we are discussing concepts here, I feel that DPO has to be a separate position, and it is for the CIO and the CISO community to gain the knowledge of what does a DPO do outside the post of CIO, CTO, CISO. So since I work with many CIOs, some of them are my very seniors. I call them sir. Mr. SP Arya is here. I work with him, and these are the kind of people whom we have learned from. And I feel that it is an opportunity for them now to grow. If they look at it, of course, to grow into a DPO's role where the work will be at least 30-40% different from a typical CIO/CISO's job. So this was more of technology. I agree with you. It is an enabler job, but DPO's job is much more than an enabler. He has to actually have all stakeholders in position and to ensure that things are getting done as per the law. And the amount of work they will have to do in terms of filing so many reports and stuff like that is really going to make it a little different from a CISOs and CIOs role, who is more technology oriented role. So there is some merging, like I'm saying, 20, 30, 40% merging. But overall, there is a lot of other things that a DPO will have to do. Where, for example, interacting with the legal department or interacting with the different tools, DPO tools will be there. There will be a lack of personnel. There will be a lack of support from key stakeholders saying that why are you getting into other domain, my domain. See, the biggest, I think, if I may call it a bottleneck or lack of cooperation will be from other departments only. That why are you, I mean, the DPO is supposed to get into every department and get data and ensure that privacy of each and every individual is being protected. And that's where there will be some clash of interest. And that's one part. Second part, that's why I'm saying that why a CIO cannot be a DPO in a large organization is because there is a clash of interest in their work. I mean, as a DPO, I'm supposed to monitor the CIO's work and CISO's work in terms of how he's taken care of the privacy and as per all the law. I'm talking of deletion, erasure, processing, how the data is being processed, how it's being transferred. And if I am the only maker also and checker also, there is going to be a gap there. So that's my initial view. Thank you.
Yeah, I think now we'll go back to Bhimish. If you're ready. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, sir. Yeah. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Hello? Can you?
Yeah.
So I think all three experts have already given their opinion. I want to wrap it up, not like in a long, but I will do it quickly. So when you told like can CISO can fit into DPO role, and immediately what rang in my my mind was like ergonomics. When there is a branch called ergonomic science, right? So job can fit into somebody or somebody can fit into a job. Like I'm sitting in a chair, so I have to fit into the job. This chair has already been designed. Like CISO is technically a hardcore technical guy, I feel. And DPO, if you feel, I think it doesn't have to be a hardcore technical guy. And definitely, I think there should be a competent, independent authority if you have those, because data protection or data privacy has been picking up. Instead of having CISO mixing his role with a DPO, I feel I think we should have a dedicated, independent, competent authority like Data Protection Act of 2008 is UK says, right, schedule. You would have competent authority, competent officer. So I feel DPO should be a dedicated position instead of mixing that CISO with DPO role. That's what my candid opinion, sir.
Okay. So as people have shared, the role of DPO basically in terms of interactions, we will have to say that a DPO has to interact with the data principals or the data subjects, because he is going to be the sole contact person as far as the data subjects are concerned. So when the GDPR or a PDPA talks about rights available to the data subjects, right of access, right of correction, right to forget, right to portability, in case a query is there, that query first lands on the desk of the DPO. And now, because of the internal requirements, suppose the company has a legitimate interest, we cannot carry out the request of the principal. I cannot erase the data because it doesn't fall under my category of right to forget. I will not allow. Or right to access, maybe too expensive, for example. CFO says, so no, if you ask these things, then we'll have to separately budget for that. So there are various issues in determining whether we can fulfill all the rights of the data subjects, or we should tell the data subject, yes, I will agree that you have asked for this information. It's a volume, like in the right to information. No, if you ask for a voluminous information, the person, the information officer will come back and say you have to bear the cost. Of course, Indian PDPA provides for that. Many other data protection laws also say that the company can impose a cost if it is unreasonable, if the volume of work involved is high. Today, it is very easy to send an email to a company, please let me know whether my data is with you, or are you processing my data? If so, give me where is my consent, or give me details of what you are doing. It all takes one email for me to send. But within the company, to make to answer that, there should be people at different senior levels looking at the request. Then somebody has to do a search of the technical system. There is an enormous cost to replying that one particular query. So such queries land up with the DPO. So DPO will be considered as the person responsible to satisfy the data principles. And if they are not satisfied, the grievance also he has to satisfy, look at. So he becomes a person who should have that skill of negotiating with the data subjects, satisfying them that their privacy is safe in the hands of the company. They should not be worried. And if some information has to be given, every word he writes in the reply email will have a legalistic implication. He cannot simply send back an email, thank you for your query, I will send the information tomorrow. It may not happen. So, and that person may hold you responsible for that. Okay, we have seen many such instances in the past that an automated email is sent out to the reply of a customer saying that we have received your request and it will be handled. Now that is an automated reply, no person has actually seen that. And only after 3 days you find out when the next complaint comes that nothing has happened. And which means that already the customer has got the grievance escalated to the next stage. So This DPO should be aware that if his name is there, you know, most of the DPO's contact will have to be appearing in the privacy policy or on the website. So whether that email comes to the DPO or is it lost somewhere else in the organization, that also you have to see, because if the DPO is doing several other things, okay, then these emails from the customers may get lost. See, all of us know that attending to our own emails and WhatsApp messages itself is so difficult. And if a company has got a large number of data subjects, attending to that customer's thing is one of the issues. That is a technical this thing. Your technical department has to enable that there is an exclusive email, and that exclusive email reaches this DPO, and the DPO is not able to respond it within, say, couple of hours. There should be some escalation so that nobody forgets that there was something. At least within 24 hours, an acknowledgement may have to be sent in most of the cases. We don't know what is the severity of the request. Some cases it may you may take time. Some cases it may be actually a starting point for a data breach kind of alert. In fact, most of the data breach alerts come in the form of a complaint from a customer. So the data protection officer should at least be able to look at the complaint and satisfy himself that it is a simple service issue which can be handled, or whether it is a much more serious issue. So I feel that if within 24 hours, if a reasonable acknowledgement is not given, there is going to be an issue. So whether that is possible is one issue. Now that is about the capability of the DPO to handle the public at large. Now, but beyond this, when it comes to a data protection impact assessment, or in India, creation of this privacy by design policy, which will be submitted to the authorities. Now it is the DPO who has to take the role of a person who is reviewing that. In fact, DPIA is prepared by this technology department, but it is reviewed by the DPO. What do we mean by review? He may have the right to say no to a DPIA prepared by the CTO. So that is where this interdepartmental relationship management becomes one of the requirements of the DPO. Beyond this, if there is a data protection authority or a regulator, a supervisory authority, now this DPO is going to be the contact point for even that regulator. So it is like a court asking you for some explanation or something like that. So you should be capable of dealing with a regulatory authority, just as dealing with the individuals on the one side for compliance is there. On the other side, you are dealing with the supervisory authority, and sometimes in the cases like India, there will be an inquiry officer, there could be an adjudicator, there can even be an appellate tribunal. These are all external legal institutions, and the DPO is the person who has to discuss with them, and many times take documents from the organization to this authority, and they will raise some objection. You come back and sit with your CISO and the CTO and then try to reason with them that something has to be changed. Many times you may have a clash with the business people. The business person might have come with a beautiful proposal which is good for your commercial considerations, but either you yourself have a doubt, or when you've taken it to the DPA raises some doubt, and you have to come back and tell your CEO or the business vice president that this project cannot go through unless you make some changes. It is a very tough situation. So dealing with external regulator agencies, dealing with the individuals like data principals, dealing with internal departments like IT, HR, business, IS, and legal, and then dealing with the CEO and the board. And this DPO's role is actually multidimensional and makes it very, very challenging. India will also have an independent data auditor auditing your compliance once in a year, which means that an external person will come and start asking you questions about what have you done with your consent management system. Show me how do you discover data in unstructured form. So you should be able to deal with such a data auditor who may be, some people may be difficult because they have to show their importance also. So there is a lot of HR related or personality related issues in addition to knowledge. As far as knowledge is concerned, knowledge of law, knowledge of technology is one. Okay, that can be even provided by, say, our training programs and other things. We can put all the information into your head. You can also read up and know. But this attitude of how to deal with the regulatory agency on the one side, public on the other hand, and our own internal people who are actually more senior to me in terms of hierarchy, that requires a behavioral skills management, according to me. I suppose that this is one of the essential features which we need to remember when we are talking of the role of a DPO. Okay. Now, having realized this, now there is a view that say GDPR provides that the DPO may be an external consultant. Okay, India does not allow that. He has to be an internal employee. Let us now debate about the implications of a DPO being an internal employee versus a DPO being an external consultant. Yeah, let us start with Satish. Yeah, what is your view on that, Satish?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Definitely, a DPO can be an external person, but I think my view is it's ideally it's good if a company can appoint a DPO locally, because most of the time I don't say that it cannot be achieved, but the context of the organization probably like a internal person, how much he can really understand, whereas uh, and as we see, the role is very overwhelming and it looks like a full-time dedicated role, right? Especially when a DPO who's sitting outside of the organization and who's trying to look at I'm not saying that it cannot be achieved. Like, of course, organizations also went through places where CISO as a service, right? But then finally I understood that it's better to have a CISO on board, because then the more accountability and of course the more he can be part of the every discussion. I think the point is about understanding the business well, the stakeholders well, and I think each one of them, Samir and Mr. Bhimesh, all of them told about how influential is it and how to understand of the stakeholder. So it's good to have a DPO within the enterprise, of course, so that he can work very closely with all of the stakeholders. A DPO sitting outside may have the challenge of understanding, because a lot of small nuances need to be understood when you work in this domain. Specifically today, while we preach privacy by design, right, where we have to probably the DPO or whoever is responsible need to sit with many stakeholders to understand that these things are embedded right away at the very early stage, not like as afterthought. Like, of course, we keep preaching security by design. Same thing now will go as privacy by design, and I'm sure it's very overwhelming and a lot of things to need to be done. Ideally, my view, a DPO, of course, should be ideally within the organization so that he can work very closely with all the stakeholders for a better alignment, and he understands the context well to get the best value out of what he's supposed to deliver.
Okay. Anil, you have seen a number of organizations as a consultant. Do we have the required talent in-house in most of the cases, or they will have to depend on any outside help?
That's one of the challenging stuff you rightly pointed out, because every organization may not have that level of competence or skill sets inbuilt within the organization. But I agree to Satish that internal person will always be a beneficial stuff, because then that person is always interacting with the business. So that person is supposed to know the business operations completely in and out. But when it comes to the DPO role, and as Navi sir, you rightly pointed out, so many facets to that role, including the communication skill, technology skill, legal skills, and other areas. It's very tough to have an internal person taking up that kind of a role. So what happens probably could be a kind of mixed approach, where even in some of my consulting assignments, we had a person nominated from inside the organization, but with support from an external consultant like me for different skill sets what that person lacks of. And we make a plan for next maybe 2-3 years that person will develop into that skill sets, and then he can take over that complete role. So similarly, this kind of arrangements can be looked at. And one more important thing probably will the organization will consider is the cost. if you have a dedicated DPO internally, once the kind of privacy framework is set up, the policies are rolled out, probably organization does not see a direct value of that DPO being there unless there is a serious kind of a audit requirement or a privacy breach kind of a stuff. So till that time, the organization think it's a kind of idle investment. So in that scenario, the organizations want to look at some kind of a consultant who can come in on a kind of call basis. So that way they save the cost, at the same time they get the right kind of services. Now it all depends again on the law also. If the law says that you need to have an internal DPO, then you have no other choice but to have somebody internally and develop the person. But when the law gives a flexibility to have a kind of external or internal, then in my opinion, organization will look for a combination of somebody making responsible internally, but at the same time getting a support from outside. That is what my views are.
Okay, thank you. Bhimesh, now Anil has made a case for a hybrid kind of a setup where there is an internal DPO for accountability, which is mandatory, of course, in certain cases like the Indian law. But even where GDPR gives that flexibility, the difficulty for an external DPO is to have access to all the day-to-day developments. So a combination is perhaps one of the suggestions he has put. Now, what is your view on this hybrid nature of an internal plus external combination for DPO?
I in fact endorse that model, sir, because when it comes to India, where our culture is different. I mean, because in GDPR, they clearly told, right, if there are 3 criteria you are meeting, and then you have to appoint a DPO. Otherwise, it's a voluntary designation. So I'm actually voluntary DPO for UK organization. So looking at our culture, and people will be like, we're like most of the times, and I'm not making, 90% of the time we'll say yes. Like, all risk, leads to DPO here. If somebody can be made capable of that, DPO can be, is the one point of contact here. So I feel there should be independent guy coming out, from the outside, third party maybe. So that guy can do justice to the DPO role with a hybrid model, as Anil sir was saying. Otherwise, in India, I think it's going to be increasingly difficult to have a DPO and playing the role of protecting the data. Like, they think DPO is like, panacea for our data governance, protecting all the data of the heavenly cloud. It's not going to be possible, sir. I totally endorse Anil sir's, model of, hybrid, like having, somebody coming from outside. And, he doesn't have to fear about his job. In India, I think it's going to be a problem. That's what my, observation. And people can, Satish is there somewhere, and then others can, share their opinion.
Thank you. Yeah. Now I will go back to Samir. I will still look at Samir as the head of SME company. He has his own, perhaps challenges. Say in FDPPI, we have appointed a DPO, but of course we are a not-for-profit organization, and the DPO also will render his services as an honorary service. We have managed, we will manage that, okay. But for a smaller organization, how do we manage the cost of a DPO? We are saying that DPO should be an expert in so many things. If he is an expert in so many things, obviously he comes with a cost, okay. Now, to have one such internal person and also engage the services of an external person, now we have the cost issue. Now, does maybe Mr. Samir, with his knowledge of the industry, can let us know where does this cost of DPO stand today? See, we have seen a couple of organizations present in India, like the State Bank of India, making at least calling for advertisements for the role of a DPO. I don't know what is the salary structure and other things, but what would be the cost to a company to hire a DPO of the stature of our panel members, let us say here, and maybe also work with an external consultant, because see, keeping up to the day-to-day changes in data protection laws in 100+ countries is a challenge which no single person can do. And so assistance of an external agency is considered a necessity. Now, how you structure that relationship is left to the ingenuity of the company, but it is always better. But as an entrepreneur, now if you want to actually have a data protection officer for, say, Redwood, now how do you manage that cost, and what is the view you have? Samir.
Sir, I agree with all the other speakers. It has to be a hybrid model, point number one. Point number two, smaller organizations, whether it is we are of course a very small boutique consulting company, but the other customers that we work with, who could be 1,000 crore company or a 2,000 crore company, yes, I am sure they will avoid appointing a full-time DPO. First of all, it will take many years for them to understand the meaning and services that DPO will observe. So yes, the first reaction will be to appoint somebody in-house. The only problem I see there also, I am also in favor of hybrid model. The problem I see there is a clash of interest. So there is a very large movement amongst HR leaders. You would have heard of NHRD and the National HRD Network. It's a very large organization of HR managers. And I was in a panel discussion there, and they are pushing that our community, which is IT community, should push for HR leaders to become DPOs, which is fine by me. But I asked them a question that how is the HR head or a CHRO of a company, he is also designated as a DPO, how is he going to monitor himself? As an HR head, he is the owner of all the data of all the employees, including PII of each and every employee of the company and some contractors also. How are you going to ensure that you monitor yourself so well that data is taken care of? So I think there are challenges there. If by that logic, the logic I have given, it should be an outside consultant, but outside consultant will come at a cost. So larger organizations will not mind that, but the mid-size and the smaller organization will of course not look at an outsider. They will appoint, they might hire one of us, as you're saying, panel members as a DPO on paper. But the work will be done by inside consultants with employees inside only. But of course, there are other, like I said, clash of interest is there. So,
Okay.
so that's my point, that both the views will happen, and it is the company's management to how to take a call. There will be no fixed view there, right? Navi sir.
Let us simultaneously take some questions which are there from the audience side also. Mr. Chetan Anand, of course, has spoken about what is the competency requirement of a DPO. Can we have a quick round of opinion from the people? Competency level, okay. Bimesh?
Navi sir, we just started in India. So the competency, like, as you said, competent authorities or competent officials. And we're still, evolving this DPO role in India. We need to digest, as I think Samir, we all, rest of the three members discussed, right? We need to actually at least absorb this DPO role. We are still in the learning stage. And I'm not sure, there is a benchmark. We need to start somewhere, right? So DPO, this is what we require in India, because our cultural difference with the West and all is a lot. Here, competency, let me ask everybody here. And there is a small story. 3 people were there in the interview. One was British, another was American, another Indian. So they asked 9 plus 2 is what? So British guy quickly said this level. And American kid took a calculator, he said level. So Indian guy asked, what do you want me to tell you? Means the problem with us is competency measurement is difficult here. It's very subjective and qualitative. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, yes, definitely one has to have some legal knowledge and data privacy, and the passion should be there. If you have passion, I think you can do a better job. Without passion, you can't do anything. So I hope I was able to, articulate the things. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
sorry if I could not.
You rightly say that it is benchmarks have to evolve
And,
over a period of time.
Another thing is Indian, again, I mean, I'm an Indian, okay? I'm proud to be Indian. There are challenges, you should know that. And, I talk to my people here, right? So this is what we need to do. And it's like I sometimes feel like doctor telling a patient, first you need to, walk on empty stomach, obese patient. The patient comes back on whose stomach I need to walk. Come on, when doctor has to tell you whose stomach, I mean, they want everything to be done and given to them. That is not going to work. So this is where I think what kind of a competency we are going to mention when it comes to India's CPO. So it's like I feel like doctors can only advise you. I mean, you cannot just expect, data governance, protect the data in heavenly cloud by, DPO, which is increasingly difficult. So, so many challenges are there, but yes. So one has to have that psychological resilience. The guy who has a psychological resilience can be a right DPO, I feel, because he needs to have the thick skin. Otherwise, he has to quit a job and go. Because as I said in the previous conversation, all road leads to DPO. Like, that all road leads to Rome was the thing, right? We used to say, like, I can say all roads are lead to DPO only. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And in fact, as you have seen, our FDPPI certification program, we have designed it as a 5-module program, out of which 2 modules are on law. So Indian law, international law, then goes on to technology, audit capability, and the behavioral skills. So probably that is the 360-degree requirement to practice. That's what we have tried to work at. But benchmarking is required. Now, if you are, let us say, a corporate head, now say, for example, for the Data Protection Authority, for members, the law defines that one should have 10 years experience in one of these kind of a thing. Like that, if suppose you are the HR manager of an organization and buying of a DPO, okay, say you have to ultimately release the specifications as an advertisement and ask people. Now, obviously, you will not look for freshers, I suppose, for the DPO position. You can have assistant DPO or supporting people and groom people to the DPO position over a period of time. So freshers will have to work their way up to the DPO. But otherwise, DPOs will be either promoted from within, from their existing responsibilities, which could be the CISO, CTO kind of technology-related responsibilities, or the legal compliance kind of responsibilities. I don't know, HR people also may say that they will be good enough for DPO provided they have acquired the respective knowledge. So if you are designing a specification, should you say somebody should have at least 2 years experience as a CISO or as a CTO or some kind of a thing? Satish, what would you like to say in terms of experience of a relevant skill? The relevant skills available in the market are is only this technology skills like CTO and CISO, and the legal skills, compliance officer. HR person may say, I've got the best behavioral skills, I can manage anybody in the organization. Even if I don't know anything, I'll manage. Okay, that skill he may have, but ultimately you have to say that you need technology experience and legal experience. They become the foundation. So would you like to say that some basic number of years of experience in an actual role is essential?
Yeah, so that's a debatable issue, sir. Even in CISO, you see, I see people even ranging from 3 years to 30 years, right? People call themselves CISO. Now, it's very hard to believe that a 3-year guy just coming out and playing a CISO role. So I think it's a very tough, but as I think Mr. Bhimesh said, right? India mein sab kuch hota hai. All jugads can happen in India. So 3-year-old guy definitely can play the CISO role. I think the same may apply now to DPO also. But I think having said that, what I understand, the discussion around skill set, one is of course skill set can be differently achieved through courses. I think the right attitude, and see, even if you look at a CISO, like sometimes the role becomes very stressful, right? You have to really have the experience. I'm sorry, have the experience to basically I should say understand the actual what exactly is the expectation. Many times I normally say, even if to my team, right, the only way to really handle is to meditate, right? Sometimes you have to keep calm, right? Because sometimes it becomes overwhelming, right? You have to really keep cool, because otherwise, especially as CISO, sometimes it becomes most of the time it's firefighting, right? Imagine you have a breach now, or if you have some intrusion, right? It becomes overwhelming. So I think one side is the knowledge part, but the other side is how seasoned. I think it's all about, as Mr. Bhimesh spoken about the passion. One is, of course, the passion, what you have to learn. And second, of course, how seasoned are you? I think it's all about keeping calm. I believe the CISO, the primary qualification is, can he stay calm, especially in a crisis? Like imagine there's a crisis, and if you're jumping all around, I think it's very difficult. I think the same, probably once all these laws take off, and even the DPO, right, will get into the situation where it will be overwhelming for him. He has to really understand what exactly need to be delivered, keep calm, stay calm, look at all the stakeholder expectation. And as Navi sir, you said, right, there can be emails from all over, right, having too many expectation. But I think it's all about the balancing act. Now, as a CISO, I believe that even the CISO today, right, has to move so many moving parts, because there are so many moving parts. Like example, in my own company today, there are so many moving parts, but I need to move every block a little bit here and there, and really ensure that I deliver value to all of them, because there's so much of expectation out there, and many times expectation is sometimes too high from a CISO. So you have to constantly move all of the small moving parts, move all of the blocks, and of course start moving forward. Now coming back to the cost, Navi sir, as you spoken, I think that's always a debatable thing. Like go back to the old days when SOX compliance came in. I still remember all the companies said, oh, SOX is too expensive, right? But as any other compliance, like for example, I remember in a GRC forum, someone said that the cost of compliance is too high. Then someone said, okay, then try non-compliance, then you tried non-compliance, that itself is more expensive, than the number of penalties, and probably it's going to hit so badly that I'm sure that is much expensive than complying to the laws and regulations. So I think organizations will slowly understand the cost is always a factor, especially where organizations are working on very thin margins. The cost of compliance is going to be a factor, but I'm sure cost of non-compliance also is going to be hit them so badly that they will understand, and they need to spend. And coming back to skill set, yes, it's a multi-skill, little knowledge of course, technology, legal, people skill, managing various stakeholders. It is like same skill for a CISO, honestly. Even a CISO, right? CISO has to be multi-talented. It's not just understanding technology alone. Process, audit, governance, so many things out there. And not all CISOs has that holistic skill set. And that's where an experienced CISO, after you spend 10 years or 15 years down the line, you understand that how do you manage all these moving parts, and you make small improvements and be successful.
I didn't understand that. Sir, Navi sir, sorry, quick point I would like to add here.
Yeah.
What Satish was saying, like multi skills. I think I agree with him absolutely here. Like one has to have that multidisciplinary approach. Like I am a software engineer. I don't know about hardware things. So that's not going to work now. I think people expect you to have that knowledge, because the cost is going to be a problem, because it finally comes to any position they hire, opportunity cost comes. So automatically organizations will look into that. If this guy is having all the knowledges. I know it's difficult. Everybody is not like Galileo Galileo. You used to have all the knowledges in the world. But at least the multidisciplinary approach is required. The carpenter should know about it. For example, electrical thinking. Plumber. If they all three are one guy knows where the pipe is there. So carpenter will not drill a hole in the wall where it's going to explode the pipe and all, which happened with me. So that multidisciplinary approach is very important. Not just I'm a carpenter, I'm going to do my job. So I think Satish was making sense over there.
That's a fine observation. Now Satish was also making a mention about the audit skills. Okay. Now of course a CISO has got certain audit skills, but when it comes to the audit skills of DPO, for example, now one of the things is he has to do a harm audit. If you look at Indian law, it uses a term harm audit. That is when there is an incident. Say from the technology perspective, we look at an audit on what caused it and whether there was a technology failure, etc. That is one kind of audit. There are system auditors who perhaps do something different, like a system audit in terms of hardware, software, and other things. But harm audit is something which the DPO will have to put himself in the shoes of a data principal and then decide this incident, how can it cause harm to me? What is the extent of harm it will be caused to me? With this, will there be an identity theft of my identity? Will I suffer a credit card fraud tomorrow? Whether my insurance bill will go up because my health data is now public and my insurance company will withdraw my insurance scheme. So the harm audit is a concept which is somewhat different from the concept of other kinds of audits which we are aware of. So to that extent, there will always be a difference between a CISO's role and the DPO's role. In fact, some of you are aware that one of the GDPR countries where they had appointed a chief compliance officer who is a legal expert as a DPO. The supervisory authority still felt that there is a conflict of interest between the chief compliance officer's role and the DPO's role. So it's very difficult for us to understand how the chief of law compliance in an organization has a conflict with the compliance of GDPR. But that is how supervisory authorities sometime are looking at, and therefore we have these difficult areas to cover when we are looking at a perfect DPO. Why I said 2 years, 3 years experience is we are talking of these 5 different skill sets of technology, law, and other things. So even if you say 3 years in each of this role, a person need to have 8-10 years of experience, and 10 years is the upper limit, because beyond 10 years you can try to become a member of the DPA itself. So perhaps we have to look at within 10 years experience, we should be able to have our DPO. Okay, now I will take one more question which is there, which is on the technology side. Somebody is asking about the use of artificial intelligence. Whether, say there are people who are saying that artificial intelligence will tomorrow make lawyers redundant. Everything a lawyer can say, an AI robot can say, kind of a thing. Okay, whether it will happen or not, whether human intelligence is still essential, that's a different issue. Now, to what extent AI can help or substantially replace a DPO, Mr. Anil?
Okay. Artificial intelligence is a buzzword probably in the recent times, but in my personal opinion, artificial intelligence can never replace human intelligence. And ultimately, whatever these applications or whatever the algorithms are going to be written for that artificial intelligent machine to learn based on the data are written by the human guy, intelligent guys. So it's always equivalent to human intelligence. And I believe artificial intelligence is as intelligent as the human being who programmed it. And in a DPO kind of a role, artificial intelligence can definitely help to an extent where the organization needs to identify, or the DPO needs to identify where all my private or PIR, PHI are lying within the entire business process. Because manually it at times become real tough job to identify where my data flows and where my PI and PHI actually lies. To that extent, artificial intelligence can help, and probably mapping of my legal requirements to the actual business process. There it might help, but again, it depends on how I program my artificial intelligence tool. But it can never replace a human being, because ultimately, even in a court of law, a human intuitive mind, how it expresses a case, which can be then proven beyond doubt, probably artificial intelligence may not be capable to do that at present. Maybe if you look at the science fictions like the Rajinikanth movie Robot, so the Chitti might take up the role to that extent, but not definitely not a replacement to human intelligence. It could be an addition to reduce some tasks. That's what my opinion is.
Yeah, Mr. Samir, you have any thoughts on technology being used either as a tool or a replacement of part of the DPO?
So the way this technology is growing, I don't see that day very far away that it will take up a majority of the theoretical jobs of the DPO, which could be keeping track of data, deleting data, erasing data, or transferring from one processor to another, or one. So there are a lot of things that AI can do, especially where the amount of data is high. A large data fiduciary like an Amazon or a Government of India or Ministry of Health or Ministry of Finance and RBI, IRDA, all these people are already using AI to some level. So I think it will be a big enabler for the DPO. Of course, the final decision in terms of like we mentioned, soft skill as a reasonably required quality for a DPO. Of course, soft skills and all will be taken care of, but yes, it will be a big tool to help the DPO achieve his objective of ensuring that all the compliances are taking place. Yes.
There is no doubt that artificial intelligence will be used, because today people are using chatbots, for example. People actually are forgetting that human interaction is always somewhat different. Okay, fine. Now, if a chatbot or if a AI makes a mistake, we are talking of 4% of global turnover or 10% of turnover in Singapore law as the consequence. Now, you tell me, can you place that risk on the artificial intelligence software which a third-party vendor has given you and says this is the best software, it can do everything? See, it may be a simple task of taking the query and then passing it on to a respective person, but AI may make a mistake there itself. They say it may make a recognition of a customer complaint in a different way, and it may think it's only a technical problem. Somebody has given a technical problem, send it to the CTO, and it will take 24 hours, 48 hours or something for the technology department to respond, whereas it should have been responded within an hour by a competent legal person. Okay, so when such things happen, will you be able to take the risk of say, when we say 10%, 4%, we are really talking of risk of closure of business. There is no company which can take 4% of turnover as within the our capability of managing. Of course, the DPO can simply resign and go to another company, but the company will have to still survive. Okay, professionals can find alternative grounds, but for the company, one major flaw can actually have a mortal blow. So humans ultimately has to take a view whether a particular thing requires, but that's why most of the time we say DPO should be supported by a committee of the governance committee or whatever way you call it. So don't let the DPO also to be alone, because sometimes he himself needs support within the organization. So whether it's a committee which consists of a legal person, the HR person, and the DPO himself, and if a different CISO is there himself, and then the business person, all these people have to be there in that committee. So the DPO may have to first refer to that committee and see what will be the implication of this across my organization, and then take his own independent view. So leaving that to an AI will be perhaps a risk. Of course, companies can take their own risk. I got nothing to say. Your risk absorption capacity, if it is there, but let us say that there is a risk. And we know that in India, the law is very clear. If any mistake is done by an artificial intelligence robot, it is the liability of the owner of that device, because whoever caused that software to behave in a particular manner, he will be the person who is be responsible. And if this AI is given as a service, I would like to make a mention here. A third party says, I will give you a service, I will maintain the service, kind of a thing, then he is retaining this liability with him, not this company. The company, when I buy a software and install it in my this thing, if that software does a mistake, then I should be responsible. But if I am giving it as a contractual basis, somebody else may become responsible. So if I am that somebody, I should know that failure of a software in a customer's environment can pass on the liability of the customer to the software vendor. So if the customer is a next company, with a certain risk of data protection related thing, the software provider, who may be the chat box provider or somebody, he should make an assessment of the data protection risk of my client before selling that particular software or even pricing it. See, if I am selling it to BMS company, I may give a different quote. If I am selling it to Samir's company, I may give a different quote, because in usage, the risk arising out of Samir's company may be different from the risk arising out of BMS company. So that way, the suppliers of service-oriented devices, which may be your normal tools of data protection, okay, your discovery tools, consent management tools, or data leak prevention tools, all these tools, if this tool supplier thinks I am the king and I know everything, I will not tell you how my software works, I will only deploy it as a black box and it will do, I will take the responsibility, then he is taking the responsibility for the liability of that company. So 4% of Samir's company's turnover or 4% of BMS turnover will be the liability of the software supplier, who may be charging only 0.5% or something of the cost of this thing. So this aspect of artificial intelligence contractually transferring the liability to the owner or to the software person who controls that software should be recognized when we talk of use of artificial intelligence to replace human being. If there is a human fault, then at least you can tell a court that a human, we have done all the background check, we took all the steps, but still he failed. It may be easy for courts to accept that and keep your administrative fines within a lower limit. But if you say that you have deployed an AI, then everybody will say that you did not make a proper assessment of that. So this is what managements need to look at.
No, sir, let me add here that most of the AI...
sorry, go ahead.
No. So most
Samir,
of
go ahead.
the AI bots that are designed do not have any decision-making capability, like Anil sir was saying. So it's what is known as level 1 support. So if I've got a product from Amazon, I want to return it. So they will give you options there, but the decision to return, not refund, refund, not refund, cut the GST, not cut the GST does not lie with the bot. So bot normally is, why I was saying bot will be useful was AI-based bot will be useful, but it will have the first level.
I understand that. I'm only trying to flag a particular risk.
Correct.
Navi sir, to add to Anil sir's observation, yes, cannot be dependent. You cannot depend on them, but yes, they are also strong follower of Chanakya. Chanakya said, right, don't make mistakes of others. Learn, from others' mistakes, because you don't have time to, make those mistakes and, learn in your life. Artificial intelligence, you think, they will not repeat the mistakes. That is one good thing. But there was one thing recently, National Security Agency of USA actually used that software, artificial intelligence, to algorithm to, put those non-flying, no-fly list and all. So that Ted Kennedy, I think, is no more. So Massachusetts senator was put on no-fly zone. That was a blunder it made. So I strongly agree. But there is a technology, like blockchain and all. You can use it to, secure the personal data. But there might be an infringe on Article 17 of GDPR, where somebody has to come and ask you to remove my data and all. There are pros and cons, but we have to take the risk with the technology and go. And otherwise, you'll not be able to scale up, sir. Because data is like, it's like it's there in the heavenly cloud, as I said, right? It's growing, exponentially it's growing. And, one article I was reading from the Luxembourg University, if Americans have to read the privacy, their privacy, whatever they find, each average American, 54 billion hours they need to read the privacy. That much of data is there. 54 billion hours, each American, average you take that to read the privacy, they come into contact when they visit the website. So much of data is there, sir. Without the automation, artificial intelligence, we'll be like going back, like, we'll sit in the caves and, have to switch up the machines and all. Yes, there is a risk. Without risk, we'll not be able to go.
Okay.
Yes.
So ensure that the AI is used as a tool which will be supervised by a human being who can be the designated DPO or whoever is that. we have to know that as a limitation of the technology. Okay.
Right.
Navi sir, what I believe is in this case, the data protection impact assessment and privacy by design, these two things will be very, very useful in ensuring that the right use of technology in the right process or right sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Mr. Arya had raised one question saying that whether Indian law mandates the DPO to be an employee. That is the reading out of section 30, subsection G. Because, of course, we may wait for the data protection authority to come up with a clarification. In fact, one of the suggestions if FDPPA has put in is to enable these external consultants to be used as a DPO, because SMEs will not be able to afford the level of DPOs at the level of competency which is required. So we have suggested that if possible, they should follow the GDPR model and make it possible, and leave it to the discretion of the company to have this as a hybrid model, which we are talking of today, which most of the intelligent companies will come to that kind of a decision, that they will have an internal person, but they will take the assistance of an external person or organization. That way, it's better. But under the Act, because it makes a reference that if you are appointing a data protection officer, he can be given other duties not in conflict. That indicates that the thought process today is that he will have other duties within the organization, which is not in conflict. But going by the GDPR, thought process where a compliance officer, legal compliance officer was supposed to have a conflict with the DPO, I don't see any other work within an organization not having a conflict. So it is if the organization can afford and it has got that kind of risk, the number of data being managed, etc., it is always better to go for an exclusively designated DPO. Otherwise, how do you have a non-conflicting this thing? Because you have to, the best person is of course the CISO, because he knows. But CISO cannot be directly, in my opinion, designated as a DPO. So probably we should have a assistant DPO that's at a slightly different level, an exclusive person, so that he will report perhaps to the appropriate person who will again go back. Your designations of a CRO, CIO, I don't know, there different companies may have different kinds of designations, but functionally, let us say that the data protection officer has an accountability to the regulator. See, that is the difference between every other kind of function and this. Here, you are not only accountable to your CEO who pays your salary, but you are accountable to the regulator who is an external judicial authority. It is like the company secretary is owing responsibility to the SEBI, or the chartered accountants who are supposed to have, statutory auditors who are supposed to have responsibility to the shareholders. Likewise, this DPO has a responsibility towards the data principles on the one hand, like your statutory financial auditors. He also, like company secretaries, owes a certain responsibility to the regulator. So you cannot treat this DPO as somewhat similar to many other functions, because every other function you are working within the company. Ultimately, you are working under the directions of the CEO, particularly if you are not a publicly held company. You forget the shareholders also, because shareholders are private shareholders in most of the companies. So if you listen to what CEO says, it is fine. What all the risk goes to the board level or the CEO, nothing other than that. That's why we have been also asking, or many times discussing, whether there is any breach of trust liability to the DPO. Whether the regulator tomorrow comes back, see, we know that in most of the cases when a data breach happens in an organization, it takes several days or even months to discover that there was a data breach. This technology people know, people have done research, and this it will take 180 days or something like that. Now, will a regulator accept that for last 180 days you are sitting on a data breach, and now you are coming back to me today, should I presume that you as a data protection officer was unaware of this for 180 days? Is a question which is very difficult to answer. So in certain instances, the data protection officer will be under pressure from the company to suppress the information, which may become very tough later on to justify. So there is a question of whether there will be a breach of trust kind of a liability, and if the person refuses to do what the CEO says, whether there is a job security, that is what GDPR tries to provide, and India also will provide some kind of a thing. I don't know exactly how it will come. Our suggestion to the JPC was that any changes in the DPO should be at least reported to the DPA, so that DPA will, with reasoning, the company has to say that I had to remove my DPO for a certain reason, and that has to be filed with the DPA, so that it is not because he was likely to be a whistleblower or something of that nature. So we have placed that suggestion. Let us see how they will perhaps do it. So breach of trust liability, protection to the DPO, these are issues which should be looked at apart from the competency. Competency, along with that comes the high salaries, perhaps the reporting to the highest authority, prestige-wise, it's a good position in an organization. But on the negative side or risk side, the possibility of this breach of trust kind of a thing. This is what makes this position of DPO very, very interesting and challenging. Of course, it depends upon your risk-taking capacity to decide whether you are the right person for this particular position or not. But one thing I can say for the community is that it is an exciting position to be in, and they have to actually look at occupying that position if you are capable of it. If you are not today capable of it, try to acquire that capacity. That is where the CTOs and CISOs should learn about the data protection laws, and law compliance people should learn something about technology. Together, they should develop the audit and human skills, and then we will have perhaps a right kind of people whom proprietors and owners can depend upon. Okay. Any other question which is there, which I have left out from the box? Or yeah, Mr. Sudarshan Mandyam, you have got any thoughts? No, you're on mute. You're on mute.
No, I don't have any specific question. Yeah, I've been answering most of the common questions.
Okay.
Including the case in Europe now where somebody was finding a CISO as a DPO.
Yeah.
Strange, yeah.
Vasantika, you have any thoughts?
Chandrika is in Europe.
I thought you all have pretty much covered everything, and I think what is really going to stand out and differentiate us is these requirement to do these harm audits, and even as part of the DPIA, we need to look at harm as one part of our entire framework of the DPIA. So we have to change our privacy impact assessment matrix also to include that. So those kind of differences is what is going to challenge the DPO. But chief compliance officer, being considered to be in conflict, it was that I have not followed the judgment. Was it compliance? So in a lot of tech companies, they call technology and security compliance as compliance, while there is a legal compliance like me, which is separate. So
this was a legal compliance. This was a legal compliance. Probably the workload was one of the issues. Okay. And what it also highlights is that many times interpretations of the supervisory authorities will make a difference. The law as such is complicated. The data as an asset is an enigma. We don't know what is data. To be frank with you, we can have a debate on what is data, what are the different avatars of data. In fact, I have tried to make it as a theory of data. If somebody has gone through my book, I introduced the term of theory of data, because there is a need for us to actually define what is data, its life cycle, and within the life cycle, how its value goes up, comes down, and in between different people interact with it. So it is and the law trying to understand what is there in the minds of the data principle and trying to say that this is good for your privacy. Who is the lawmaker to tell me what is good for my privacy? Because today what is good, tomorrow it will be different. So there are a lot of complications. That is why one of the capabilities of the DPO is this resolution of disputes. In fact, the reason why FDPPI wants to get into this dispute resolution mechanism under the hands of experts is you need to understand the complexities of the law and the possibility of different interpretations between different supervisory authorities. Can I take the supervisory authority of Germany's decision into India? Maybe not. Okay, but probably it will come into a discussion in the forum. Somebody will quote something from Switzerland, something from some other this thing, and locally we will have to take a view on in the Indian situation. If there was another person equally competent, that is, we say in terms of due diligence, a similar person in a similar situation, would he have taken a different decision? That has to be the thought process, at least when fixing the amount of say liability. Okay, at the end of it, you can say you made a mistake, but should I go for your 4% limit, or I should give you a nominal $1,000 or something like that? That is the discretion which has to be judiciously expressed, and the DPO has to face this kind of dilemma, because law is complicated, the role of DPO is very complex, and developing that skills, we have to evolve that over a period of time. But as I told you, at least to my attitude, it is a challenging job. I would never refuse a challenging job, but there are other risk-averse people who have to look at my CISO job is good enough. I will not get into the DPO. That is for them to decide. But which means that there has to be a remuneration to the DPO higher than that of the CISO. The logic is that DPO is actually more complicated than CISO, because he should be CISO plus something. So he has to be at least CISO plus law. No, he should at least know one law PDPA and one law GDPR. Without that, you cannot be a DPO. You may not know about DIFC law or Singapore law or some other 20 other countries' laws. But without knowing GDPR and without knowing PDPA, you cannot be a DPO in India, which means that it is CISO plus is the qualification and competence required for a DPO. So therefore, HR people have to look at fixing the salaries and remunerations of the DPO at a markup to the CISO in their own organization. Of course, CISO in organization A, CISO in organization B is different. But there has to be a markup for the DPO because that we expect him to take more responsibilities of legal nature also. So that is what we should conclude here, because people who are perhaps listening, or people who are professionals who are looking at this profession of DPO with awe, and some of them may think that it is something which is created. For example, it's created by law. There is no doubt about it. Just as intellectual property right is created by law. Now, value is put into that. Likewise, DPO career is being created by law. Okay, and value comes in with this law. We have to accept this kind of a situation and go ahead. Okay, so I think we have come to the end of the time. I hope if anybody has got any critical question in their mind, they are welcome. But otherwise, we will.
I just.
Yeah.
Now, sir, I just wrote one message. See, there is an issue in the industry. Everybody says DPO role is that no one is actually with a solution of a common. One is for the role of the DPO, other is for the other data consent. Yesterday we discussed, no?
Yeah.
Both these roles.
Yeah.
We need at least FDPPI can take the initiative and form a common body of knowledge.
Yes. we will definitely do that. In fact, we have to develop jurisprudence in this. Say, I am always a person who does not accept what the judiciary or supervisory authority says as gospel truth. We have to analyze that, and we have to develop jurisprudence. If the Swiss authorities has thought of something, I won't accept it as the truth. Okay, if we know the law, at least we should be able to present the view. So maybe organizations like FDPPA has to develop the jurisprudence regarding data protection law. Okay, and everybody should accept that yes, there is no one perfect solution, context-wise, and yesterday we were talking about culture of India. That also has to be factored into the decisions. As I told you, at least for the determining the penalty. Okay, I accept that I have made a mistake, perhaps, but you should not look at that as a gravest of the grave mistakes kind of a thing. So we will try to do in FDPPI whatever is possible. That's why this dispute resolution also becomes part of our responsibility. We don't know how it will develop. Let us see how it will develop. And before we end, I would like to remind that at 4 o'clock we are having our next session. That is another controversial topic for discussion, which is the cross-border transfer of data, which is something which was a change from 2018 version to 2019 version, whether data should be localized in India, whether it will give benefits to the local industry, and in between the Schrems 2 judgments have come, and the European Data Protection Board has come up with several clarifications, and it has become a mess. Okay, if I am a CEO of a company, I would really be, somebody asks, you be the CEO and give me what I have to do in this. It is a very tough call. As a consultant, we always say, this is a problem, this is a problem. Now, solution, the best part of solution is very tough to find for Schrems 2, but let us see, let us debate that. We have another panel of experts in the afternoon. I hope all of you will join me back at little before 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock we would like to start. Today we had to delay by 5 minutes. So maybe 4 o'clock means 5 minutes before 4 o'clock, let us assemble and start the discussion at 4 o'clock sharp. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Navi sir, for that very informative session. Definitely this is going to be helpful for ones who are growing their career as data protection officers and acquiring competencies for fulfilling the role of DPO. I thank all the eminent panelists. Just a small vote of thanks from Vasantika Srinath. Vasantika, over to you for the vote of thanks to our eminent panelists.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Navi sir, Anil, Samir, Bima, and Satish. It was a great panel and very, very interesting discussions. Couple of, I would say very important and key takeaways are how we need to work on various skills, background that will go to make a DPO and will also actually help a DPO in his or her success in the role. One thing that really resonated was, when people complain of the cost of compliance, to say try non-compliance. I thought that was, spot on. That is, a line I use, and I think that totally applies even to the DPO, because that is what, a lot of companies try to look for a chalta hai, or, try to wriggle your way around. That may not really work once all these regimes come into place. We will have to comply in spirit and in law, and for that you need a DPO who's equally skilled in technology, in understanding processes, and understands the law. And this is going to be very hard for a lot of companies to find people with this kind of a mixed set of skills. But this has been a very, very enlightening discussion. Thank you, all of you. Great work done here. Thank you, and thanks all for being a great audience. We hope to see you all again at 4 o'clock. Thanks.
Thank you, Vasantika. Bye.
Thank you.